What's up guys, today I'm going to be talking about the GoPro Hero 8 versus the Osmo Pocket, which one you should buy. Let's go. So the GoPro Hero 8 and the Osmo Pocket both have similar resolutions, 4K 60p, 1080p 100 frames per second. The GoPro just edges it a little bit, going at 200 frames per second. Now you might be thinking, well, if they're both similarly spec'd, which one should I go for? And that's what we're going to be explaining here today. So the Osmo Pocket has a narrow wide field of view, so it's not the widest, but it is usable for vlogging. Think about the Sony ZV-1, whereas the GoPro Hero 8 has the linear mode, which is around 19 to 38 millimeters, I believe, and then it's got the wide mode, which is, I would say, probably the best medium between super view and linear. And then you also have the super view, which is 16 millimeters, I believe, and it's super wide, not the best looking, and it's also got a lot of distortion, but if you're out on the mountains or anywhere else, it's really great. This is the Osmo Pocket at a arm's length away, and it's not super wide, but it's wide enough so that you can see behind you. And like I said, it's got a very similar field of view to the Sony ZV-1, and it can be used for vlogging, and I think it's good if you want to get like really up close and personal with your viewers and stuff. But let's switch over to the GoPro now and let's see what kind of field of view we can get with that. So this is the GoPro Hero 8 at 4K 25 frames per second at linear mode. I've got hypersmooth turned on, so it does crop in a bit, but it does feel quite wider than the Osmo Pocket, I would say, and it feels quite nice as well with a cinematic type of view. This is probably the only mode I would recommend if you want some really nice cinematic shots. The other modes can tend to distort the image a little bit too much. Wide is probably pushing it. Super view I wouldn't go. So let's test out the other modes. Okay, so this is the GoPro Hero 8 at the wide field of view. Again, 4K 25 frames per second, hypersmooth turned on to the max. And I kind of like this one. I think this is the best in between. If I wanted to show my background, if I was traveling maybe, this is probably the best medium between all of them. Not too close, not too far. Yeah, I really like it. So this is the GoPro Hero 8 4K 25 frames per second in super view mode, and again at arm's length. Hypersmooth is turned on, but it only gives me the option to turn it on or off. I don't believe the boost mode can be on because in the other modes it crops the sensor in a bit, but it's still pretty smooth, and because it's so wide anyway, you're probably not going to miss it. So when you could stabilize it in post. For me, this is almost too wide. I think it's great for like maybe mountain tops and stuff. Really, you want this one for sceneries around you to really showcase what's all around, and then you'll probably use a bit of defishing in post-production. One of the advantages that the Osmo Pocket has over the GoPro Hero 8 is its autofocus capabilities. Now you can either use continuous or single, and with those you can either go creative or you can just go on the basic tracking. What I also like about the Osmo Pocket is that with the tracking and autofocus, you can actually do face detect. So actually, no matter where you move the camera, it pretty much keeps it on track. If you are in dark conditions, it doesn't seem to go as well, but yeah, so if I go down, the gimbal will follow me up. If I go up, the gimbal will follow me down. And with the GoPro, you're kind of limited to its focusing capabilities, which is, I think it's got a near focus. I'll put on the screen how close you can focus, but so you can either go this close or you can go far. The advantage of the GoPro is that you never really have to worry about focusing your camera. So you got ifs and buts, and it depends really what you want to do. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about why one is better over the other for both modes. So let's talk about connectivity. When we talk about the Osmo Pocket and the GoPro Hero 8, they both connect to different devices in various different ways. Now, with the Osmo Pocket, you can connect it via Wi-Fi with a module. I tend to not like that way because it uses a lot of battery and it's also quite expensive. One of the best ways you can just connect the Osmo Pocket is to your phone. So you literally, if you've got an iPhone or an Android, you just plug it in like that, and then it will begin the Mimo app. Now with the Mimo app, it allows you to have a full screen view. So as you can see here, you can get a nice full screen view, and You can also control the camera, you can change the settings, and it's also got one feature which I don't really use, but is probably handy for a lot of beginners. And that's story mode. With story mode, you can create different kinds of moves. They've got templates. One of the other things you can do here as well is you can get into more precise time-lapse movements as well. So if you wanted to set the gimbal facing that way, you can actually control the points in which you want it to go to. And that's really great to see on the phone because it makes it a lot easier to visualize what you're looking at. I also like shooting this way as well because it just feels more comfortable if I want to get like a more stable grip, so I can just literally move the gimbal around with the phone and I can see what I'm shooting, and it makes it that much easier. And it connects directly to the phone. So if you've got a really nice phone and you're able to connect your gimbal to your Osmo Pocket, you're going to get a really nice screen. And honestly, it's smooth. There's hardly any lag at all. I can't even tell if there's any lag. That's how good it is. And it doesn't connect via Wi-Fi through this method. So when you take out the gimbal from the phone, you can actually connect it via Lightning to USB-C, and that can just be a long wire, so you can have that as your extendable connection. Or you can, as I said before, you can have the Wi-Fi module. So connectivity to the Gopro Hero 8. So when you control the GoPro to the GoPro app, it connects via Wi-Fi if you want to be able to see the screen. I believe you can control it without the preview, but then it does it via Bluetooth. You get the full view and you can actually see everything in front of you. So similar to the Osmo Pocket app. And what I like about the GoPro app is not only can you set presets for your shooting modes, and you can obviously do that in camera, but also control it on your phone. You can go on live mode, so you can connect to Facebook, Twitch, or any other streaming services, and it will allow you to use your GoPro in any of the situations. So imagine if you're going swimming or anything like that. One of the other things I really love about the GoPro app is the video editing. So once you've shot your footage, you can just transfer the footage wirelessly over to your phone or your iPad or whatever device has a GoPro app on it, and you're able to then start editing. It's quite handy with the GoPro because you can actually just edit and then be done straight away on your phone. Whereas with the Osmo Pocket, you're going to require some sort of editing solution. So that's something to consider in mind. So when we're talking about the battery life of both cameras, we're looking at around 50 minutes per battery, which you might not think is enough, but it is okay if you're going to be turning the camera on and off and you're taking a couple of short clips, which generally with these kind of cameras is what you're going to do anyway. If you want to extend that life, let's talk about the Osmo Pocket. Now, you can get yourself a power bank with power delivery and make sure it's USB-C to USB-C. And all you do is just connect it to the bottom, and that will then power your gimbal for as long as your power bank runs. Now, your gimbal will get hot, so that's something to bear in mind as well, because it's such a small camera and such a small little case. There's hardly any airflow in there, so that's something that you need to consider. I haven't had any heating problems myself. I've managed to shoot around 2 hours maybe, and it's been perfectly fine for me. Maybe if you shoot in 4K 50p or 60p, you're probably gonna run into heating issues, but that's just the cons of having such a small body like this. The advantage of the GoPro 8 is that it has a battery door, which has a removable battery inside. And you can actually take this door off and get a third-party battery door, and I'll tell you why you do that in a second. So you can actually remove the batteries, and so you could have about 5 or 6. If you purchase the GoPro battery charger, it's got 2 slots in here, and it can be charged via USB-C, so that doesn't need to have a mains power. You can actually still charge it with your power bank that has power delivery, so again, USB-C to USB-C, and that will charge your batteries on the go. Now, one of the reasons why you'd want a third-party battery door is that the Ulanzi one has got a hole where the USB-C connection is on the GoPro, because you can actually charge the GoPro directly. But when you use this door, the battery is prone to falling out in case you want to use it. The Ulanzi one allows you to connect the USB-C connection, charge your GoPro, and use it continuously while you're filming. That will also run the camera really hot. Again, these are small bodies shooting 4K, and 4K uses a lot of heat. So conclusion-wise, I would think that both of the cameras have their limitations. The GoPro can just run a lot cooler on fresher batteries, so you've got the advantage of that, and you don't need to have any wires sticking out of it, and you can continuously charge using that. So in the battery department, I would say that the GoPro wins, but the Osmo Pocket is still usable by connecting via the battery bank, and that will let you shoot for as long as you want. So it depends what you're doing. If you're going to go out and doing action shoots, the GoPro is probably better battery life, but if you've got everything in a controlled environment, then obviously the Osmo Pocket will enable you to run continuously. So now we're going to be testing the stabilization of both of these cameras. Now, you need to bear in mind that there are 2 different types. This is a mechanical gimbal, and that will provide you with the smoothest, stablest shots and without any kind of jitter, unless of course there's any wind. But really this really gives you a really nice cinematic sort of style of panning and tilting and anything else you want to do. But you can't do it too fast because obviously the gimbal only has its limitations and its strength. The GoPro now uses digital stabilization, and whatever they're doing on this is amazing. Like honestly, it's so steady that I can't. They call it the gimbal killer, and it's a gimbal killer for a reason. So we're going to test now. So both of these again are on 4K 25 frames per second. I've got the GoPro on linear mode with the hypersmooth turned all the way up, and this is just on the regular gimbal with the face track on. So we're going to do a simple walking test, and I'm going to like shake the cameras this way and that way, so you'll be able to see for yourselves how good and how bad they are. So let's take a little walk. Now, right now I've got both cameras, so I'm going to give them the same amount of fair shake. I expect the Osmo Pocket to have a bit of wobble to it. I want the GoPro, I think the GoPro will be pretty stable, but I'll do a little voiceover to tell you what that looks like in post. And now I'm just going to tilt from side to side, see how the cameras cope. And what you'll notice is that with the Osmo Pocket, because of its 3-axis gimbal, it's able to keep me fairly stable. So you shouldn't really see much difference, maybe a little bit of like bobbing, like a boating action. With the GoPro, I think it'll keep it smooth, but also you'll probably get like a lot of warping on the sides and stuff. So tell me, what do you think? Which one's better? And now if I keep them dead still, if I hold them both out. So that was a stabilization. Now I want to talk about the types of moves and why one is kind of better than the other, depending on what you want to do. With the GoPro, the main object is to keep the image stable and smooth as possible. So if you imagine if you're going down a slope or you're running, it will keep that image as still as possible. With the Osmo Pocket, the goal is slightly different. It gives you more of a cinematic type of feel. So you're able to pan and tilt and go up and down and do some crane shots over the head, whatever you want to do. With the GoPro, you can't really do that. It's pretty much wherever you point it, it'll keep the image stable. So you can't do the same sort of movements where I can keep this focused on my cameraman, and then as I go down, I can keep it smooth. Whereas with the GoPro, I actually have to manually do that unless I had a gimbal for the GoPro 8 itself, which at the moment, I don't think there is any apart from the Crane M2. So yeah, that's another additional expense. So this is already built in, but not to say that one's worse or better than the other. I think that the GoPro, when you talk about the stabilization on this, paired with the field of view of the wide angle lens, makes it a much better vlogging tool. And I know a lot of people might have been suspecting that the Osmo Pocket was be something that I'd say was a lot better, but for me, the GoPro wins in that department, because when I'm running or anything like that, this will keep me still or as stable as possible. And it's such a small device, and the ability to know that I can throw this around while I'm running or moving down a mountain or anything, and it still try to keep me as smooth as possible is a winner. With this gimbal, where it's that little bit more delicate, I think it's more suited for the cinematic universe. But you could still use it for vlogging. I just prefer the GoPro because of the stability of it and the toughness of the camera itself. So next up on our test is the audio features. Now the Osmo Pocket features 2 microphones, one at the front and one also at the bottom. So you have to be careful when you're using it not to cover it with your hands. And I know a lot of people have had issues with that. The GoPro also has a mic at the front, and I believe there's one at the back as well. One of the things that both of these cameras offer is a USB-C mic adapter. Now, the Osmo Pocket's one connects through and then it sort of like hangs off like a dongle. I sort of don't like it. It feels a bit clunky and afterthought. So when they had the Wi-Fi module, that sort of like had a little base and it slotted in. I thought that could have just been the microphone adapter. I don't know what it is in there that they need for it to work, but the current solution is pretty bad. With the GoPro now, I sort of like their options a lot better. You do have the sort of similar USB-C mic adapter, which also is like a dongle and hangs out. But then you have the media mod. Now the media mod comes with a microphone on it, but from what I've heard, it's pretty bad. The only good thing is that you can either connect HDMI into the media mod, or you can connect an external microphone. And that's if you want to use an external microphone with these cameras. I would personally say you need to get a separate audio recording solution like what I've got. So in my back pocket now, even recording, I've got the Tascam DR05X and I've got the Rode Lav mic attached. So for me, whenever I'm using devices like these, that's what I want to be running with. Okay, so now I have both cameras at a similar distance away from me, and we're going to test the Osmo Pocket first. So looking at the Osmo Pocket, how does the sound sound? Is it good? Is it bad? How is it compared to the audio solution that I'm using, which is a lav mic connected to the Tascam DR05? Let's do a little nursery rhyme. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. So if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. So if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. So if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. So if Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? So one of the things that I'm not going to talk about in this episode is the photo capabilities of each of the cameras, because I want to make a specific episode for that. Filters. When it comes to the Osmo Pocket and the GoPro Hero 8, they are very different selections of how you mount the filters onto these cameras. With the Osmo Pocket, you have these little magnetic ND filters. So I'm just going to take one out to show you. And they pretty much just stick on via magnets. And you got to be careful because you can get some scratching. I actually had my Osmo Pocket replaced because I had a little scratch. I don't know if it was from the filters, but I have heard reports of people scratching their lenses with them. But so far, I mean, I don't think it was, but yeah, the filters really help for when you're shooting and you want to control those conditions and you want to capture that cinematic motion blur to get your shutter speed, the double frame rate. And you can get all types of ND filters for these. Now, there's various different ND filters that you can get for the Osmo Pocket, and they've also just released an anamorphic one, which I might get, I'm not decided yet. They also have a wide angle adapter as well, so you can widen your field of view on the Osmo Pocket. The downside to that is that you can't actually control any of the light, so that's something you need to think about. You can't stack the NDs on because the weight of it will actually cause the gimbal some issues and it just won't function at all. The GoPro uses these sort of clip-on adapters. So you sort of just clip them on like that. And then what you'll have is a filter, 52mm thread, or you can have step-up rings, and then you can attach these to the front, so that will help to control your light. Now, I actually kind of like this solution versus the old GoPros where you had to actually like twist off the front lens cover, and then you could just twist on your other NDs. And the reason why I like this is because you can actually use your normal ND filters, and you can also share them between your lenses. So you could put on an ND 1000 if you wanted to get really slow, nice shutter speeds when you're doing photography, or if you want to just put a variable ND on there, you know, it's totally up to you, which is great for when you're vlogging as well. So if you wanted to keep that cinematic motion blur on there, you could do. So which camera for which situation? Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if you're just doing purely cinematic shots, then the Osmo Pocket is the way to go. You can also use it for vlogging, but I would put that as a second priority with this camera. Really, this is going to get you some awesome shots, B-roll shots, anything that you need to get on the fly and be ready to shoot and go. With the GoPro now, this is sort of a fun camera. I would actually put this first as a vlogging camera. I really think this is, paired with an external audio solution, this is probably the best vlogging camera that you can get, because you want that super wide field of view and you want to be able to see everything around you. If you want to be able to get in closer, then obviously you can go with linear mode or even the wide. So you've got so many options there, and it's got great slow-mo. You can dive underwater with it. There's just so much more you can do with the GoPro than with the Osmo Pocket. But like I said, if we're talking about cinematography, the Osmo Pocket is the way to go. The GoPro just can't compete with the Osmo Pocket's motion, the gimbal, and all the movements there. And yes, you can get a gimbal for the GoPro, but it still doesn't give you the same effect. I feel like the Osmo Pocket's image is that much, just that little bit much more better, even though you got the improved bitrate with the GoPro Hero 8. So overall, which camera should you get, the GoPro 8 or the Osmo Pocket? Like I said, it's all down to you, what you shoot with, how you prefer to shoot. I do think, again, the Osmo Pocket has that slightly better image quality, but the GoPro is much more usable in a lot more situations. We will be doing a low light test as well coming up, and I said we're going to be doing that photography episode as well to really get the best out of both of these cameras, because when it comes to photo, it is quite a lot different than your normal DSLR or mirrorless camera that you're going to be using. I've been out slightly. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Peace out.